Today we are celebrating an impressive milestone. Today's episode is our 100th episode. I feel like it was just yesterday we started doing this.
Yeah, 100 episodes. We drop one a week, so it's been about 2 years. Just the nature of our industry is seasonal. Make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. This is at the top of my mind is because
the trends should move you in the right direction. You should be climbing, right? And that's why you don't want one thing that you're following. You don't want to just rely on the source report, right? You don't want just one data point. I would say those 5 data points are the things that kind of keep you moving in the right direction.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Bug Bucks podcast, a podcast designed to help you become a bug money millionaire. I'm Alan Draper.
And I'm Eric Bassett.
And we're your hosts. Today's episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, which is the #1 course designed to help you start and grow your pest control company. Eric and I are dedicated to providing you with the best resources to help you on your journey to success. Before we begin, I just want to remind everybody the best way to receive new episodes is by subscribing to our show on your preferred platform, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you love the show, please leave us a review and a rating. And one last reminder, if you haven't joined our Facebook group, go to Bug Bucks. That's BUGBUX on Facebook. We love to hear from our listeners, and we love to be able to interact with them on that platform. What do you have for us, Eric?
Today we are celebrating an impressive milestone. Today's episode is our 100th episode. So kind of crazy, Alan. I feel like it was just yesterday we started doing this.
Yeah, 100 episodes. We drop one a week. So it's been, Bug Bucks, about 2 years, which is interesting because I had a pest control podcast, Start and Grow Your Pest Control Company, that had, 20 or 30 episodes or something that I kind of parlayed into the Business Growth Pod. So technically we have more than 100 episodes of Bug Speak, but dude, 100 episodes. I don't know off the top of my head what percentile of podcasts we're in, but we've got to be in like pretty rare company.
Yeah. It's just kind of like building anything, like consistency is your best friend.
Yep.
When we started the podcast, you're not exactly sure where it's going to go or what we're going to be able to do with it, but you just commit to doing it every week, sit down, have a conversation about pest control and the world of ownership, and bam, here we are.
Yes, sir.
So,
well, congrats, man. Congrats to us. Congrats to Bug Bucks. Congrats to the community. Congrats to our guests over the years. Like, it's incredible. It's been an incredible ride. It's interesting because it's one of those tasks. It's almost like now people will tell me, hey, I've heard you on the podcast. Thanks for doing it, but no real money, right, comes from it. It's not like I get paid $5 every episode or something. So it's, you have to fight this temptation to kind of toss it to the side every once in a while. And I think like a lot of things, Eric, you got to find the value where it is. And with this, it's the community that we've been able to create, the people that we've been able to network on the show, the value, the information, the tips, the tricks, like everything that we've been able to offer. And frankly, that I've learned through those 100 episodes. So it's been an awesome ride, man. Looking forward to the future.
I'm looking forward to keeping this thing rolling. So speaking of keeping it rolling, today we are actually welcoming back Matt Rogers, the COO of Lizard SEM. And Matt has recorded 5 episodes with us. And if you guys haven't listened to them yet, I encourage you guys to go check out these previous episodes. I'm going to link these in the show notes, but just so you guys know what they are, it was episode 33, which is the facts and fallacies of scaling a pest control company with digital marketing. That dropped back in May 26th of 2022. And then episode 39, which was why marketing is worth the investment for your pest control company. And then episode 57, how to optimize your website for SEO. And then episode 65, tips to help convert your leads into revenue with expert Matt Rogers. So yeah, now we're hitting episode 100 with Matt Rogers. So this is going to be an awesome one. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It is going great. It has been quite the year. We're not even done. We're all headed to Pest World, which is going to make it even crazier. But yeah, 2023 has been a ride for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. And it's been fun having you on this ride. You know, I mean, you've probably done episodes every, what is this?
5%. I'm 5% of your 100 episodes.
Yeah, that's how good you are, Matt. You're 5% of our entire show. How does that feel awesome?
I love it. That makes me feel great, actually.
So what's going on in the marketing world? I mean, we're coming up here. By the time this episode drops, it's going to be, middle to third week of September.
Yeah.
What's going on in your world, man?
There are a couple things in digital marketing in the Bug Bucks community in particular that I wanna talk to our people about. And that's and we can hit whichever one you want to talk about because they're both pretty big. You use the fourth quarter for this when you're planning your marketing. So the first one is all of us nationwide and some of our Lizards partners internationally are kind of in the process of exiting their season, right? And so things are starting to slow down, right? And the first temptation when things are starting to slow down is we pull the throttle off of digital marketing. The truth is, though, you really need to shift your focus. So the first thing I want to talk about is optimizing folks' websites, SEO and local SEO, and how pivotal that is, not just for the off season, but for when your next season picks back up. Preparation for the next season is half the battle. You definitely do that in the fourth quarter. And then the other thing is, I've got some secret sauce for one of the very successful exercises. In fact, Eric, you and I just talked about this. The exercise of creating your forecast model in the month of October, and I've got some numbers that our family can kind of plug in so they can figure out their own kind of projections for next year. You're supposed to do this. Well, we did this at Killingsworth in the month of October, every October, and so it set us up for a continuous path towards success with each new year. So.
That's awesome. So you're doing that in October for the following year.
Following year, yeah. Helping our partners get ready for 2024. And whether you're a partner of Lizards or not, you should be doing this in the month of October for sure.
So when you're talking about, as a PCO, one thing that I have a hard time with, Matt, is investing in SEO because unlike AdWords, it's really tough to see the bang for your buck sometimes.
Yeah.
Help me through that. Help me understand, what the mentality is of a PCO that should be investing in their website. Talk to me about, is there a certain size? If I'm doing $100,000, $200,000 a year in top line revenue, should I be working on my website?
Yeah.
Just kind of make me feel better about this idea that, hey, I'm going to spend time, money, effort, and it's going to take a while before that pays off.
Yeah. So I'll start really zoomed out. I'm going to say, this is not because I'm on the 100th episode, but my favorite partners that we work with are partners that Eric works with also, because he really does help structure the mind of the PCO to kind of zoom out and define the things that they need to be measuring so that they can keep charting the path forward, right? Bug Bucks does a great job of that. We talk about that in the community. I love it. The partners that are listening and putting these things in place have the best shot, but I'll start way zoomed out, right? In terms of bang for the buck. Are the forms coming in, right? Is the phone ringing with new opportunities? And are we getting new traffic to the website, right? Are those three things happening? That's very zoomed out, right? That's like you're squinting and you're very busy and you're the PCO that's in the car and you're probably also crawling in the crawl space and you're probably also fogging somebody's shrubs for mosquitoes, right? And you just need to have these big three things to focus on. And those would, I would say, would be the big things. Are you getting new client phone calls and you're not tracking them yet, right? You can't get that down into the weeds yet. Where are they coming from, right? Are new opportunities coming in through form fills, whether that's into an email or whatever? And then can you tell if your site is picking up traffic consistently? And then kind of if you want to get down a level, right, you start to think about where those phone calls are coming from and where who's filling out those forms, right? So I've got this one partner. They do an amazing job actually on social media, and they do also. This will lead to a pet peeve of mine, actually, but they also do a great job of sourcing. I listen to all their calls. They do a great job of sourcing. How'd you hear about us? Where'd you get the whatever for their inside sales team? And so they've got this source report, which is source reports to every PCO that's listening. It's never 100% accurate. It's barely 60% accurate. You could flip a coin and land on accuracy, especially if you've got a lot going on. If you've got trucks going up and down the road, if you've got a billboard, if you've got a YouTube video or Instagram or Facebook or Google.
Well, if my mom calls a company and they're like, hey, how'd you hear about us? And let's say that I don't even know if my mom uses Google, but it usually happens that my mom will contact one of her kids. Hey, can you get me a phone number? We'll give her the phone number. They'll ask her and she'll say, oh, I found you on the internet. Well, what does that mean? Right. And we've run into that where it's like, was it an ad campaign? And sometimes the conversations get kind of weird where it's like, so was it at the top? Did it say ad by it? So it's like, it can be difficult.
The partners that I talk to that hedge all of their bets and make all their decisions on this source report are the ones that I'm like, come on, please. You just have to trust me. I've been doing it for a while. It's not accurate. So the first thing that you can do if you're kind of getting in a little bit closer on some of those KPIs, the phone calls, the form fills, the web traffic, is start to track and monitor where those calls are coming from. Start to track and monitor where those forms are coming in from and how many, right? And then start to see where people are visiting on your website. So you can start to pivot your ideas as to what things you're putting out there in your market. Like right now, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are like, it is mosquito city, right? I guarantee you the pest control companies that are around here that are dealing with any of the stuff have a heavy traffic on their mosquito pages. So you pivot your offer, right? You start to look at what traffic is doing on your website. And then you can start to get in even deeper, which is what we try to help our partners do. But to your point, it still takes a little time. What people will notice ultimately when they're practicing digital marketing and they've got a steady hand on aspects of digital marketing, it can shift, right? Season in, season out, quarter to quarter, month to month, right? The strategy can shift. But ultimately what our partners notice is that the volume of new opportunity keeps coming in. So they ultimately need to be checking their new contracts, how many new contracts they're getting each month, month over month, and year over year. And then they also need to be looking at their gross revenue line. So those are the 5 things for me: phone calls, form fills, web traffic, new contracts, and gross revenue. Is it all moving in the right direction? If it's moving in the right direction, keep going. If it's not moving in the right direction, get into the weeds just for a second, right? Work with your digital marketing company, work with your business partner, work with your accountant, your inside sales team, whatever. Get into the weeds a little bit, figure out what's not working, and then kind of tweak that.
One thing that I'd like to add is because just the nature of our industry is seasonal, make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. And the reason this is at the top of my mind is because I have a vacation rental property in Florida. We were having somebody help us manage it. And they compared this year to last year, saying that, we weren't happy with their progress. And they said, well, we're making more money this year than we did last year. And I said, well, yeah, but last year there was this little thing called Hurricane Ian that came through at the end of September. Yeah. And so their comparison wasn't apples to apples. It's like, okay, why don't we look at the year before that, before Hurricane Ian? So when you're doing this, don't compare like September to August or October to September. Compare it to the same month last year, and then take the caveats like the Hurricane Ian. Well, proof we're having a tough time with technicians in one of our branches. Yeah, that can affect same day sales, right? So make sure that in addition to just the hard data, which are Eric's going to have to help me with this, but that those are lagging indicators, right? That data, make sure that you understand the nuances. Like, hey, what is it that could be factoring into this? But then, I always say that, like, if you look at like a publicly traded company's quarterly report, half of it is footnotes, because there's so many ways that the data can be construed that they have to be described and identified and articulated through footnotes. And it's the same way with data, especially with marketing data.
Yes. The trend should move you in the right direction. You should be climbing, right? And that's why you don't want one thing that you're following. You don't want to just rely on the source report, right? You don't want just one data point. I would say those 5 data points are the things that kind of keep you moving in the right direction. Eric, I didn't move.
Yeah, I think it's so funny that you bring up source reports, because my inside sales team, we keep track of sources, right? Marketing sources. And I had a podcast episode that I did. It was a solo episode where I talked about inside sales, and I talked about having your inside sales team track sources. It's one of the metrics that you need to kind of keep an eye on. And I think the example that I brought up was something similar to what Allan was saying, which was, let's say your technician is servicing a customer's house and the neighbor comes outside and the technician says, "Hey, yeah, we'd love to take care of your home. Here's my card," right? And then he hands the guy the card. The guy walks inside, puts the card on his countertop, and totally forgets about it, right? Yeah. And then, the next day, wakes up, sees ants on his countertop, is like, "Man, I think I should call somebody," and then forgets about it. And then when he's scrolling late at night on Facebook or whatever social media platform, he sees your ad, right? And then's like, "Oh man, yeah, that company, that'd be super cool," right? Falls asleep, forgets about it. And then the next day he Googles, "Oh man, pest control, that's right." And then he sees your name pop up. And then when he calls in, he says, "Hey, I want to, get a quote." And your inside salesperson goes, "Oh, how'd you hear about us?" And he goes, "I just looked you up on Google."
Yeah.
I mean,
so which one is it?
Yeah. So it's like, when I talk about like inside sales teams tracking source data, it's like, hey, you can get into the really nitty gritty, like, "Hey, customer, what was the one thing that really influenced you to choose our company, right? Yeah. What influenced you the most?" But it's still going to be a little bit hairy trying to get that good of data. So,
it's
it's so tough. So if anybody's listening out there, if you like source data, that's cool. I like source data. It's nice to know, right? And it gives you kind of a general vague idea of where you should be investing some money. But, you got to be careful that you're not putting, like Matt said, like all your eggs in one basket.
No, we've got, we had a partner last month, and this was the fall on the blade of the source report partner. And their budget was small. And so we were improvising a lot internally, and we were retargeting ads to follow people into Meta. And so their source report indicated they had a huge jump in people converting from Facebook. But that informed, without all of the pieces of the puzzle, that informed the partner that most of the leads were coming from Facebook. So why am I doing stuff with Google? Well, the ads were generated in Google and following people into Meta, right? So you just can't hedge your bets. That's why I think those 5 things, phone call, form fill, web traffic, gross revenue, and number of contracts year over year and month over month, are the biggest things to just let you know you are constantly moving in the right direction. And to your point, or a little bit earlier, Allan, there's never, and I'm not just saying this because Lizard is a digital marketing company. For pest control, there is this misconception that we only digital market in the on season. You could not be more wrong. You will gradually see your website fall down in the rankings of Google if that's what your game is, right? There's never an off switch for digital marketing. You got to budget it into what you're doing.
So how do I stay excited about digital marketing? What's the mentality? I'm a PCO, I'm just kind of coming off the high of the summer where my company's just blown up, did really well, crushed it online like Proof did this year. What's my mentality? What can convince me that I need to, work just as hard September through March, April as I do the summer months?
Yes. If you're running a profitable pest control company, and I talked to plenty of PCOs that are not running profitable pest control companies. If you're running a profitable pest control company and your contracts, the number of contracts that you have in your recurring revenue stream is growing, that means your digital marketing company is doing their job. Be excited about it, okay? Because your pocket's getting fatter and this other team of people are busting their ass to make that happen, right? If your contracts are growing, if your gross revenue is growing, and internally you're focused on things like controlling your routing, right? You're focused on things like percentage thresholds for chemical purchases, right? Operational training to help you out with insurance policies, right? To scale your insurance back a little bit. If you're working on those things, not only are you bringing more money into the pot, but you're also reducing the amount of money that you're spending. So you should be going home happy every month, right? And if you start to get into the place where you're like micromanaging those 5 components, or God help you, if you're like micromanaging the source report, then you are shooting yourself in the foot. You're going to drive yourself crazy. That's our job, to be crazy about this data, right? Your digital marketing company, that's their job, to be crazy about the data. But B, you're needlessly driving yourself crazy because you're making more money. You're up month over month, year over year. You should be happier at the end of each month if you're doing it right. So that's my sales pitch. Do it right, make the money, let your digital marketing team do their job.
You know, I think it's interesting. A lot of these PCOs are probably, maybe you're in a point where you operate year round, right? And like, we'll say regardless of the market here, we'll say regardless of the seasonality of your market, maybe you're to the point where you're busy enough and you kind of no longer have this magical off season. I remember when we were really young, October rolls around and it's like, oh my gosh, I can take all my vacations. I can do whatever I want. Like, wow, this is so cool. And, you've got maybe one CSR in the office that's like, hey, should I go to part-time? Like, what am I doing here? And as you grow and as you scale, it's not just that your busy season gets more busy and your off season is always dead. It's that that curve, right? That phasing curve starts to broaden and widen. And, if you're anybody like me, you look at some of these other months outside of your normal growth months and you think, dude, how do I get customers in there?
Yes.
How do I capitalize? Right. Yeah. They are there. Yeah. And, how do I capitalize on those months and really get some good ROI where it's not just like 0.025% of my growth in December or January, like how do I get 1 or 2% or try to get some type of regular capacity there? Because, you probably don't like laying off staff. You probably don't like laying off technicians and CSRs. And, if you're paying managers year round, if they have a salary, you'd love to keep them busy in those off months. Right. Yes. And, even if you're one of those companies that's kind of struggling to bring in those leads, just like Matt is saying, you kind of have to adopt the mentality that there's really no longer just that 50-50 switch. You don't just have the digital marketing in the busy season. You put the emphasis in the off season as well. That way you can start getting the benefits from the off season. And I know, Matt, you kind of mentioned on, doing those projections, right? Yeah. Looking out at the next years and kind of seeing what's possible. And, you and I, we talked about this last week. It was awesome. I was on a call with Matt and we were talking about projections and how, I don't want to say that, I'm not sure what percentage of pest control operators are doing these types of projections, but, when you do the projections, you're able to see, specifically, okay, month over month, what's my percentage of growth? What's my percentage of lead volume month over month? How does that trend throughout the year? And then you can target some of those slower months and say, man, okay, there's my trends for, November, December, January, February.
Yeah.
How do I make the most ROI in those months with what's capable in my market?
Yeah. So kind of touching on something that you just said, the image that kind of popped in my mind, the football team that is not using the off season to prepare for the on season is not going to the Super Bowl. They're not going to the playoffs. They're not playing. And this is a competitive margins game that we're playing, that you fellas are playing. All the PCOs that I talk to, all the PCOs out there, digital marketing companies are a dime a dozen. There are pop-ups of pest control companies all over the place now, and that competition is high, right? And so what makes you better? You have to be better in the margins, just like Eric's saying. If you're listening, nothing truer could be said probably out of this whole podcast. Use your off season to prepare for your on season. You got to do it, right? So in order to prepare, there's a shout out, a Mike Rogers shout out. And I'm getting used to them as I get older. And I have kids, and I know one day they're going to say, Dad used to say, blah, blah, blah. And when I was young, it just drove me nuts. This is one of the things that he taught me and my brother how to do when we were running Killingsworth. And I'll be damned if it doesn't make complete sense for predictable, scalable future growth, right? So In the off season, as you're exiting season, you need to pivot your strategy, especially if you're on a smaller budget. If you don't have a lot to spend on digital marketing, that's fine. Spend your money on paid search in the on season. Spend your money on SEO and local SEO in the off season, and branding. You can even do some branding with Meta, especially as you are approaching February of next year, right? So that's where you need to shift. This is why I used this metaphor on a call the other day with a partner in Australia. In the on season, what you're hunting in the on season and the off season, right? In the on season, you're hunting for new contracts with paid search, and that's like using a shotgun, right? In the off season, you're hunting with traps. The trap is your website, and that's SEO and local SEO. That's revitalizing and reconfiguring the content on your website to use predictive models that Google gives you, right, to plan for traffic that will be coming in the future. And I'm giving a huge shout out. Allison, Bridget, I hope you're listening. All of the things that Allan has seen on his website this calendar year are predictive work that the girls do 6 months before it ever even happens, right? So that's what you're doing in the off season. In the off season, you're setting traps and you're working on your website so you can get new foot traffic to your website in the next season, right?
Do you have a budget that you recommend for the average pest control company in terms of 80% pay per click, 20% SEO? Do you break it down like that? Does it depend more on their actual raw dollar budget that they have available, or what? So, how do you make that? What's that analysis for you?
Well, I love that. I feel like you just set me up to answer Eric's question. So far at Lizard, I do not like to rubber stamp anything, because every PCO has a different mindset. Every PCO has a different wallet. Every PCO is working in a different market, right? And so I like to help them with their predictive models, their forecasting models, so that they've got a margin that they know is going to impact their P&L every month, right? For a company that's trying to grow, we've talked about on this podcast before, I say 6%, right? 3% to maintain, 6% to accelerate growth, right? Of your gross revenue month by month, right? That's what we'll get to in a second. The exercise in October, right? And so once I figure out what their percentage is, it gives me an idea of what they can afford to do. Because just like everybody else, this is where it's tricky for the digital marketing company. Just like everybody else, you guys are offering services to clients, and there are thresholds that you've got where you're like, yeah, we can work with you a little bit here. And then you're like, okay, but this is we're doing a service for you, right? We got to get paid too. So once I get an idea of what their 6% is, then we try to tailor their marketing plan to fit that. Because what I don't want to do personally is ever take up more on folks' P&L than that percentage, because then they'll always know exactly what to expect of me at the end of every month. Matt and his team, they took this much, but that makes sense because there were 6% last month, this month, next month. And I still took home 30%. I still took home 40%. So I don't care, right? So that's what we try to do. It doesn't always work out like that. I don't know how many times I've said on this podcast, every single call that I go to with some of these partners, they'll still stick a even number out there to Google, and it just is what it is. So we'll do what we can there. But that's what I like to do for partners. Figure out their budget, figure out their percentage, and work inside of that.
Love that.
I'm sitting here and I'm looking at my projection table, my budgets and all of my phasing for this year versus last year and previous years, And as we're talking about this, I'm just sitting here thinking how good it feels as a pest control owner to have the clarity of a forecasted model.
Yes.
Because, the one question I get from other pest control operators, and this goes for a lot of the companies that I do consulting work for, the reason that I even have a consulting job is because there was traditionally this disconnect between marketing companies and pest control operators. And it had to do with the data and the clarity. And I really usually end up doing is I help these pest control operators figure out okay, let's look at your leads over the course of the year, right? Yep. And let's look at how much money you spent. And that's going to give us an overall cost per lead, right? We'll kind of have a zoomed out view of this. And then we'll turn that into percentages over the course of all these different months.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how much you want to grow by. Let's apply that to the model, right? Assuming that we can get the same kind of growth, curve. And then let's talk to your marketing company. let's see what commitments they can make as far as cost per lead goes. Once we know what the cost per lead goal is and we know how many leads we want to get, we got a budget, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And then you hand the budget over to the marketing company. And then, once every couple of weeks, once a month, you sit down and you say, hey, did we get the number of leads we wanted to get? There's number one.
Yeah.
Well, we did, didn't we? Why not? Number two, did we spend as much as we wanted to, or did we spend more than what we were expecting?
Yeah.
And did that spend get us the performance that we wanted? Right.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of have that conversation month to month and you go, and it's really nice and clean. Yeah. Right. They either met the expectations or they didn't. And Matt is the one that said expectations, knowing what is expected of him as a digital marketing company from his clients. Matt wants that. I can't tell you how many marketing companies just want to leave things in like the ethereal world of, hey, you give me money, I'll make your phone ring. And, and they'll answer questions like, hey, so like, did the phone ring enough for you this month? And it's like, sure did, got some customers. It's like, great, go ahead and write me a check for next month then.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, and the tough part is, and me and Al have talked about this before, it sounds easy and we make it sound super simplistic, but it's really tough to proactively go in and track all the data and make sure your data is clean and reliable. And it's one thing that you as a PCO need to invest in. If you want to be able to scale your company and grow like Matt and Allan are talking about, you have to be able to use the data to do it, because without the data, it's all opinion. It's all gut feeling. Yep. And sometimes that's cool. Use your intuition. Sure, there's a lot of intuition in this, but it's nice to just look at the numbers and hand them over to your vendor, somebody like a marketing company, and go, here's my data. Tell me what we can do with it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just encourage anybody who's overwhelmed by that, just start someplace. Pick one of the data points and start there. Right.
Yeah.
You'll feel better getting that one under your belt and then moving on to the next one. But October is a great time to start to figure out what those data points are for you so that you can think about what you want to accomplish in 2024, right? Pick one and just start there. That's the thing.
Yeah. So Matt is, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and Matt's a really, the way that he works with a lot of his clients, and I've been on some of these calls, the easiest way to do it, like Matt was talking about, is he'll take your revenue. And if whenever you call him, he'll say, hey, let's look at your revenue from the last however long. We'll start off with a real simple percentage, see kind of how aggressive you want to be. And then we'll just go from there. So if all you had was just your revenue, Matt can reverse engineer that to provide you a path forward, right?
Yeah, that's all we ever did at Killingsworth. That's one of two things that we do for our partners in October. So if you, I'll use Proof as a great example, right? Let's say, and I'll just keep the numbers round, Allan. Is that okay? And I'll keep them real.
Yeah.
These are fake numbers. Yeah. Who's listening? This is fake as crap. Let's say Proof wants to do $100,000 next year. This year they did $100,000. Next year they want to do $150,000, right? What Allan would do for me is he would give me their gross revenue breakdown by month for 2023 up to October, and then he would project what he's going to do in October, November, December, right? Given the data that he has internally, okay? Then what I do is I determine what percentage of growth is happening in his company for each one of those months, right? And then you kind of layer on that extra $50,000 they want to have in 2024, right? And then I use those percentages. You guys can do this. You don't need me to do this, right? We do this for our partners, but you can do this, okay? Get the clarity. You'll feel better when you have clarity like this, okay? But then we use that percentage by month. And then Allan says, okay, my marketing budget is 6%. So I'll take 6% of each of those numbers per month and be like, okay, well, this is your marketing budget for 2024, right? And that he can use it with Lizard. He can use it with whoever. It doesn't even matter, right? But that's how much you should spend in all your digital marketing efforts in the next month, right? That's one way to do it. Projected gross revenue. That was the exercise we did at Killingsworth every October. And it wasn't just for marketing. It was for our operations, had to do it for chemicals and routing, right? We had to figure out efficiency costs inside of that. Your whole company needs to be considering doing this exercise. And then you compile this data together and one document where you're going to keep it as the owner of your company, right? And then you use this data month over month next year to see where your team is at. Because if you've got these predictable pieces of information, marketing is always going to cost me this much each month, and they're going to be generating this many leads each month. My chemicals should look like this. My gas should look like this, right? What you'll see is you can start to really scale up your predicament. Well, heck, I don't want to grow $50,000. I see my margin now. I want to grow $75,000. I want to grow $100,000 more, right? Then you can start to really press the pedal down because you know where you're going, right? I see the biggest thing that I see PCOs doing in our industry. God bless you. I love all of you. Okay. But if you will drive like this and you'll push the gas pedal down, you have no idea where you're going. You're not using any metrics, right? You're guessing and you're just thinking you can throw money at stuff, and it does not work like that.
Yeah, you have to be deliberate about it. October, and since you're doing all these little pieces, it's a great time to just do full-blown budgets for the following year and projections, because it's basically a puzzle. Yep. And when you start with top-line revenue and your projections, and you can use previous years' percentage of gross revenue. I love that report, the P&L that shows year-to-date percentage of top-line revenue. If you get those numbers and you want to make tweaks to certain line items, that's perfectly fine. But you take what you want to do in top line revenue, you take the percentages from the previous year and where you'd be happy with them, including a net margin and a gross profit margin. Then the numbers just create themselves. So as we're wrapping up, Matt, dude, this information's awesome. I know that you mentioned that people can do these calculations and these projections on their own.
Yeah.
Can they reach out to you if they have questions? Is there something that, if they're going through the process trying to figure it out, can they reach out to you? And if so, how do you want them to connect with you?
Yeah. Hit us up, lizardmarketing.co.co, and just fill out one of those forms. And me and my buddy Brent will get right back up with you and figure out how to kind of get you on track. This is the month to do it. You're hitting the sweet spot. If you're figuring out the end of this year, you don't know how to prepare, you've got time. You've got all of September and all of October to get your affairs in order. So you can do it.
Love it. Hey, thanks for the time, brother. Wish you nothing but success. Excited for Lizard. Folks, make sure to check out the website, lizardmarketing.co, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please show your support by subscribing and leaving us a 5-star rating. Thank you, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.